The NBA trade deadline has come and gone, and as always, it has reshaped the league in major ways. From blockbuster moves to subtle roster tweaks, teams made clear statements about who they are and where they're heading. Here to break down the 2026 NBA trade deadline, I'm your host, Emily Carter, alongside Chase Brosend and Gabe Kavaldo. So guys, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm being honest, the trade deadline is one of my favorite times of year in the NBA. It's always so exciting and entertaining to see where players end up and if my theories were right about those players and just the broader implications about these teams. I had my notifications turned on Instagram for Shams, and I swear every next post just got more and more surprising. So it leads me to question, what are some of the most shocking trades from this deadline for you guys, and which ones seem to make the most sense? Chase?
Yeah, I would say the most shocking notification that I got was when it was announced that James Harden was going to be headed to the Cleveland Cavaliers in exchange for Darius Garland. I was shocked at first because obviously James Harden, he's just 11-time All-Star, he's NBA great, but I think it's a really good fit for both teams. As for the Clippers, their Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and James Harden saga is kind of over, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Although they've been pretty hot this season, they're not going to be making a playoff push, and I just think it was the best move for them to start to rebuild. And then as for the Cavaliers, I think it's smart. They're just a piece away from making the NBA Finals. I think he really complements Donovan Mitchell well. He's a really good scorer, and I think that they're going to be able to make a playoff push this year.
Yeah.
So originally I was going to say Harden, but then Shams actually said a few days before he got traded that they were in talks of the whole trade happening. So I wasn't totally surprised since they were kind of teasing the trade. I actually went with my most surprising one being Jared McCain being traded to the Thunder, because there was nothing about that being teased. It kind of just came out of nowhere, I feel like. And, you know, he's only in the sophomore year of his NBA career. He tore his meniscus in his left knee his rookie year. I think he was on pace to get Rookie of the Year, actually. But then, obviously, he got hurt, and then Stephon Castle got it. So I think the Sixers kind of just gave him up too early, in my opinion. But I think the Thunder, I mean, they had the most picks in the NBA, tied with, I believe, the Nets and some other teams. So they had so many picks to kind of just play with and use. So they got McCain, and now their team got even better than the reigning champs. So, I mean, their chances of becoming a back-to-back champions are really likely even more now. And then I think like another trade that I kind of didn't see surprising, but I thought was a really good fit was Vucevic actually getting traded from the Bulls and going to the Boston Celtics, because the Celtics obviously got rid of Kristaps Porzingis after last season. He went to the Hawks. Now he's at the Warriors. But because of that kind of hole at the five, I really thought Vucevic was a great fit. Yeah. He's also a shooting center. He can shoot the ball very well behind the arc and also at field goal. So, yeah, I thought it was great moves.
Absolutely. I was very pleased with that trade of Vucevic. I think it's definitely what Boston needed. But I felt like that McCain trade hit me like a bolt from the blue. Again, no teasing for that one. The Harden one, you heard some speculation, and that man just seems to love to travel. But, I mean, I could not have been more surprised by the McCain trade, but I think it could be a really good thing for him, and I think he could be a really good fit over in Oklahoma City. But now, moving on from that, I think this is one of the hottest topics in the media and all over social media is we have like our winners and losers of the trade. So I'm curious, which teams do you think came out in the best shape from this trade, and which ones seem to kind of get the short end of that trade stick?
Yeah, so to kind of piggyback off what like Chase said earlier, I think the Cavs are huge winners here. They went out and got James Harden. Obviously, they did give away Darius Garland, who's a very young guard. I think he has still a very long time until his NBA career is over. But he has been dealing with a lot of injuries on and off the last couple of years. And Harden is still balling. I mean, this year in even with the Clippers, he was doing amazing. I think they're looking at it, and I think Shams kind of pointed at this when he was reporting on all this stuff. And it's like they're looking at this 2 to 3 window of a championship run now. They have D-Mitch, they don't have to sign any extensions right the second after this season, so they're trying to, use this next 2-3 years to kind of go in and go all in. So I think the move for Harden was amazing, and we'll see what happens with that. And also, I really liked what the Wizards did. They've been in rebuild for so long. I feel like they've been kind of just, purgatory of the NBA for a bit, kind of since the John Wall days. And now that they got AD and they got Trae Young even earlier, they have the backcourt, frontcourt duo. They also got depth pieces from the Mavs. They got Exum and D'Lo and Hardy. So they got a bunch of depth along with those 2 stars. So as long as they can stay healthy, because that's a big question mark for AD and even Trae Young as of recent, but as long as they can stay healthy, we might see them even as far as the play-ins, maybe like low seed playoff next year, depending on if they get anyone else in the offseason. We'll see.
Yeah, and with so much excitement with big name players going around the league, I think that a move that kind of flew under the radar was Jose Alvarado going to the New York Knicks. The Knicks were just a piece or 2 away last year from making it to the NBA Finals after they lost to the Pacers in that 7-game series. And I think he's really going to complement players such as Josh Hart, Karl Anthony Towns, and Jalen Brunson, especially on defense. He's such a good defender. He's a really gritty teammate. And I think he's just a perfect fit for this New York Knicks defense. And then on the other hand, I think a big loser of this trade deadline was the Milwaukee Bucks. There's no surprise that there was talks between them parting ways with superstar Giannis. He publicly demanded a trade in the weeks leading up to the trade deadline, but they just weren't able to find any compensation that they liked for him. And with recent playoff losses and a losing record this season, I just think it's time for the Milwaukee Bucks to kind of blow it up and start the tank. And they just haven't. They're not going to get any value for him now. I think this was the best time to do it, and they just couldn't pull the trigger. And yeah, I just have him as a loser.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, I'm a Knicks fan, so when I saw that Jose Alvarado went back to Knicks, he's a New York native, I was very excited. Obviously, they call him GTA, comes from behind, kind of steals. He did it in his debut with the Knicks, dropped 12 off the bench. I think it's a great addition. As a Knicks fan, I was kind of scared that, the Celtics, the Cavs made, these big moves, and then they went and got a huge depth piece. The Knicks also have a huge hole in the guard position because their backup point guard, Deuce McBride, is now out for a while after getting surgery on his core muscles. So we'll see how that goes, but it should fit those missing holes and should be a great piece for the Knicks.
Yeah, and as you said, Chase, I thought now was the time for Milwaukee to make some moves, and they didn't. So I was very surprised by that. I thought for sure that Antetokounmpo would be traded, but I was very surprised by that one even. And again, it's been a minute since you heard the Wizards be mentioned in such a positive light, but I think that this could be a really good thing for them, and that has us moving forward and thinking what are some of these broader implications for these teams like the Wizards, who have brought in a fresh core here and have a lot of potential. So what are some of the biggest overall, let's think big picture here for the future of some of these franchises? Yeah,
well, if you go a couple years back, I argue that the Oklahoma City Thunder kind of revolutionized the way we look at teams competing. For example, they blew everything up overnight. They started from the ground up, and it only took them about 3 years to rebuild a new young core. And I think that's the way a lot of GMs like to approach their teams today when managing their lineups. For example, you have teams like the Thunder and like the Lakers, Spurs in the Western Conference that are clearly all in. They're tweaking their rosters a little bit before the deadline to get ready for playoffs. But then there's other teams in the way bottom. They're tanking for draft capital, and you just can't really be stuck in the middle ground. We see teams like that today, like the Warriors and Suns. When you're stuck in that middle ground, you don't lose enough to get a good pick, but at the same time, you're not really a contender for the playoffs. So I think smart teams like the Grizzlies and like the Sixers are blowing things up a little bit so they can start building on a young core. And I think that's just the smarter move. In about 3 years, they'll be real contenders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'll just put up, with the East and the West. Starting with the East, we have contenders like, the Cavs, the Celtics, the Knicks. Pistons are probably the scariest team as of now in the East. So there's a lot of contention there. Before it was kind of like, the East is kind of just up for grabs for anyone. Now I feel like it has changed after the deadline. And then you look at the West, and it's like teams like the Clippers that were so hot all of a sudden for a month or two straight, and now they just sold all of their players and they're in full rebuild mode. So they're probably going to try to tank for even possibly a lottery pick, depending on how many games they can lose for the rest of the season. And they're going to try to rebuild from that. And then you have teams like the Warriors. They couldn't land Giannis from reports, and they were like, we're just going to be content went with a player like Kristaps Porzingis. When healthy, they know who he can be for them. So obviously more depth for the five position with Draymond Green. I think it's a great piece for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I am, again, this was a big trade deadline, so I'm excited to see how this shapes up across the league. But the trade deadline has passed, but the impact is just beginning. Time will tell which franchises made the right bets and which ones still have questions to answer. For Chase Brosend and Gabe Kavaldo, I've been your host, Emily Carter. Thanks for tuning in to Penn State Sports Night.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night.
For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, and follow our socials down below.
And as always, we are
Penn State Sports Night.